the radical, fundamental principles of freedom, rational self-interest, and individual rights. This is the Yaron Brook Show.
All right, everybody, welcome to Yaron Brook Show on this Tuesday, January 28th. Our month of January slowly coming to a close here. I will be traveling off to a Florida conference and talk at Clemson University and then Florida conference. So I'll be gone Thursday and Friday, and then early next week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I'll be also gone. Not sure how many shows during that week break I will do. We'll see. A lot of it depends on Wi-Fi's at hotels, as you know, as I travel. We will see. But today we've got a full show and a stacked, packed lineup. And then tomorrow we'll have another show before I head to the airport to get a plane to Atlanta and drive up to Clemson and all of that. All right. So what are we going to talk about today? A lot of Trump. He's just, what can you do? He's in the news. I mean, that's part of the whole issue. So we'll talk about tariffs on our enemy, Taiwan. Who knew? I didn't know Taiwan was the enemy, but I guess they are. So we've got now tariffs on Taiwan, or threats of tariffs on Taiwan. We'll talk about just the general disruption that the Trump administration is to the functioning of government, whether that is good or bad, whether that views it as good or bad, whether something positive can come of it. We'll talk about that. And in that context, we'll talk about kind of the constitutionality, legality of the president deciding what dollars that Congress has approved to spend, it's okay to spend. That is, that the conflict between the legislative branch and the executive branch, a conflict that I'm pretty sure is going to find its way to the Supreme Court one way or the other, whether right now or later on in the administration at some point this will happen. We'll also talk about the stock market. It's a beautiful thing, the stock market. So we'll talk about when it functions well and when you don't have meme stock stupidity, and generally it is. So we'll talk about why the stock market's up today, down yesterday. Not why it's up today or why this stock is up or why that stock is up, but just generally what's going on with the stock market. How does it respond to this new news? We talked about DeepSeek yesterday, so we'll talk about kind of more about DeepSeek in this context and how it affects NVIDIA and the other stocks, other tech stocks, and if it's so bad, why is it up today? What the hell's going on? NVIDIA's up like, I don't know, last I looked, 5%, something like that. It was down, of course, 17% yesterday, so 5% is not much, but it's still interesting. Anyway, hopefully you'll find it interesting. We'll talk about Gaza. Hundreds of thousands of Gazans are heading north towards the north of Gaza, something that Israel for a long time prevented and said that it would not allow. We'll talk about who won, who's winning in Gaza. Trump's suggestion to just vacate Gaza and move them all to Jordan and Egypt, or move a lot of them to Jordan and Egypt. I think even Albania got in on the mix at some point. The Trump administration approached Albania and tried to get 100,000 Palestinians from Gaza moved to Albania. It is, I think the Albanians told them to go shove it. So we'll talk about that. And then we'll finally, a couple of, progress stories. X Money was launched today. It's interesting for a number of different dimensions. We'll talk about X Money. What are they trying to do at X? And what is the meaning of X Money? And anyway, we'll talk about it. And then finally, just celebration. I mean, this fantastic news. We'll talk about it a little bit, and that is Boom Supersonic, the Supersonic company run by Blake Scholl, who is an avowed objectivist, who the first private company in the history of mankind to fly a plane at supersonic speeds. It's still not the full-blown plane that will become commercial one day, but it is a crucial step towards reaching that point. This is a test plane. It's a smaller version of that ultimate plane. And given all the obstacles and all the problems and challenges, just a momentous day for Boom Supersonic, just momentous day, I think, for humanity. Supersonic flight, when it becomes a reality, and now really with what Blake has done, it really is a question of when, not if. When it becomes a reality, really dramatically improves our ability to move in the world and move around in the world and travel and go places. It cuts a lot of the flying time by half to places like Tokyo and Asia and London from New York is going to be a breeze. It's like a domestic flight, and it's super exciting. So it's going to make travel so much easier, and I think it has the potential to really live up to what the Concorde was supposed to be, right? But yes, that is Boom. So we'll end on a positive note, hopefully. Although then there are questions, and your questions are often negative. So I'm kidding. All right, Silvanos, thank you for the $20. Really, really appreciate the sticker. You guys can do stickers to support the show. The show cannot exist without support from listeners like you. Listeners make this show possible. You fund this show. I couldn't do it without you. I'd shut down the show, go find a different job. But you fund the show, so thank you to Silvanos, thank you to Mark for doing a sticker, and we'll get to the questions later on in the show after we talk about the topics. And yeah, let me think. Any logistics, anything we need to talk about? I did mention my travel. So Thursday, Friday, until the following Wednesday, I'll be traveling. Not sure about shows during that period. Try to do as many as I can. So tomorrow will be the last show. Pretty sure tomorrow will be the last show in January, given that Thursday, Friday, I'm pretty sure something weird would have to happen to make it possible for me to do a show Thursday or Friday. Maybe I could do one from Clemson. Maybe if they gave me an office and a good internet connection, I could do one from Clemson. I will take my equipment with me up to Clemson so that maybe I can do a show from there. That would be fun. Maybe I can do a show with Brad Thompson. Maybe we can do one live in person and talk about stuff right there. So that'd be good. What else? Hopefully some of you are coming to the conference in Naples, Florida. That is going to be fun. And maybe some of you will actually see at Clemson. I don't know. Certainly, if we have any students here who are part of the Lyceum program at Clemson, I'll be seeing all of you on Thursday. I think that covers it. I've got a lot of other travel lined up for March and April and May, but we'll talk about those as the dates get closer. I will, for those of you in the UK, I will be in the UK for a whole week in March and then back again in May. So I'm going to be doing a lot of talks at the UK. Most of them, almost all of them, not public. So almost all of them private talks, but maybe we'll do some private talks. I'm also thinking of doing a seminar in the UK, in London. Anybody's interested, something along the lines of Yaron's Rules for Life, but something oriented towards achieving values. Maybe we can talk about sex, career, and friendship in the context of the pursuit of values. There seems to be a lot of confusion about sex among people. So that will probably be like a day-long seminar that I will charge a little bit of money for in London in late March. Yes, March 30th, I think. Okay, more to come, more info to come as I kind of get a handle on that. If there are topics you're interested in me doing, By the way, you can come to London from anywhere in Europe. You can come to London from anywhere in the US if you want to. It'll be fun. But if the particular topics you would like me to do an in-person live seminar, like day-long thing, let me know. Let me know. Send me an email. Put a note here on the in the super chat. You can put it in the chat, but I might not see it in the chat. If you put it in the super chat, I'll definitely see it. Any topics you're interested in me talking about, like in a seminar, face-to-face, closed session. All right, let's jump in. So Donald Trump gave a talk, I guess it was last night, at somewhere, Congress, something, Congressional Institute, I think it's called. And he brought up a few things. One is he brought us this idea that that he has mentioned in the past, and that other people have mentioned in the past, this idea that, hey, let's get rid of the income tax. The income tax sucks. Everybody hates the income tax. And let's replace it with tariffs. And it really, I think he mentioned it yesterday. It's to quote him, it's time for the United States to return to the system that made us richer and more powerful than ever before. This is McKinley's system. This is the system of tariffs. Instead of taxing our citizens to enrich foreign nations, we should be taxing foreign nations to enrich our citizens. I mean, every time he says that, I want to just laugh. It is so frigging funny that he talks about taxing foreign citizens. I mean, again, it's this guy's not an idiot, but when it comes to economics, he is completely ignorant and really stupid in some deep way. How do you tax foreign nations? Why would they let you tax them? But anyway, and of course, tariffs are complicated and convoluted, and they have unintended consequences, and they have all kinds of consequences that we'll get to in a minute. But this idea that we could replace the income tax with a tariff, because McKinley did it. McKinley did it. In McKinley's time, the federal government spent about, 3% of GDP. If we shrunk our current government to about 3% of GDP, no Medicare, no Medicaid, we'd have to pay off all the debt because no interest on debt. No discretionary spending. All the discretionary spending is out. Basically, a defense budget. I think that would be it. Maybe some other stuff. Even then, you're not at 3% of GDP. You're above. But you have to cut all of that. Last I looked, Donald Trump said he would save Social Security and Medicare. He would preserve them. He would keep them. He would not reform them. He would not change them. He would protect them. So, how are you going to fund 22% of GDP, which is what we spend today, with tariffs? There's just no way to do it. There's just no way to do it. Wait a second, where is that? I had a tweet here that's disappeared on me. 1 second, I'll get to it. It's not that. It's not that. Huh. I had this data source right here, which I wanted to talk about, but it's disappeared. Yeah, there it is. Okay. So here's some numbers, right? The federal government spends today about $6 trillion. That's 6 with 12 zeros after it. Is that right? Like a billion, like a million is 6 zeros, a billion is 9 zeros, a trillion is 12 zeros. So I don't know if you can even comprehend what that is, but $6 trillion, 6 with 12 zeros after it, you can figure out what your contribution to that is. $6 trillion. Total imports to the United States. If you import everything we imported last year to the United States, that counts as imports, $3.8 trillion. $3.8 trillion. Now, what tariff rate works in order to get us to $6 trillion? 100% would generate if nothing changes, right? 100% would generate $3.8 trillion worth of tax revenue, but we're still short quite a bit to get to 6. You basically have to charge somewhere north of 150%. 150% tariff on every good that was imported into the United States. 150% tariff. 60, 70, something around there, right? All right. That means that those goods would all rise in price dramatically because, let's say the manufacturer will absorb some of the tariff, but you can't absorb 100% of the tariff. That would mean you're giving away the product for free. I don't think any manufacturer anywhere in the world is going to do that. Mark says, remember, we overspend. Yeah, okay. So, maybe you can cut. I mean, if they cut $200 billion, that will be amazing. I mean, not cut from future spending, cut $200 billion. That would be amazing. You're still at around $2 trillion, right? You're still at around $6 trillion. So, let's be realistic here, right? Donald Trump has said Social Security and Medicare off the table. So, you can't cut a lot of money. What are you going to cut? He won't cut defense. He won't cut Social Security. He won't cut Medicare. What's left to cut? Not that much. So it's a $6 trillion budget until somebody proves otherwise, right? And at best, you could cut a few $100 billion, but you're not cutting trillions unless you start really reforming Medicare and Social Security, which nobody seems to have the appetite for. All right, so again, 150% tariffs. That means that if the manufacturer absorbs all of it, which is what Trump is claiming, right? He's going to tax them. Then what would happen? They would actually pay us to take the goods. Well, that's not happening, right? That's not happening. They're not selling it for zero. So we're going to have to pay for much of that. So prices are going to have to go up dramatically. That means, first of all, that Americans are paying the tariff. Let's unequivocally, maybe not all 150% of it, but maybe some of it is being paid by Americans. And then what happens? What happens if prices double? If all prices of inputs double? Are you going to buy the same amount? No. I mean, we're constrained financially. We can't just go out and pay double for all the stuff we import. We're going to stop buying imported stuff. We're going to buy American stuff, or we're going to get by without the stuff that we bring in. We'll just cut our standard of living and, live without imported stuff because we can't afford it. That means not only a dramatic recession in the United States, all of that, but it means that imports go from $3.8 trillion a year to maybe they go down to $500 billion. People stop buying imports because they can't afford them. And now if you have 150% tariff on $500 billion or even on $1 trillion, then the tariff is only bringing you $1.5 trillion. I mean, this is a ludicrous example of 150% tariff, which would be insane. But let's assume that people in the Trump administration are a little insane, or at least Trump is. And you still have a gap of $4.5 trillion that you have to make up. It's just, this is simple math. This is not sophisticated economics. We'll get to that in a minute. This is not complicated. It's not difficult. This is simple math. You cannot, period, metaphysically, just the laws of nature will not allow you to fund our existing budget through tariffs. And the more you raise the tariff, the more Americans pay for it. The more you raise the tariff, the less Americans will buy imports and the less revenue you will get. And all that revenue, or most of that revenue, overwhelmingly will be from Americans. Like if it says a 2.5% tariff, you can imagine that some manufacturers abroad will reduce their price by 2.5% and take the hit. And that's what he means, right? But he's not talking about 2.5% tariff. That won't raise we're close to the amount of money he needs. I mean, I'm asking you to do something, those of you who support Trump, I'm asking you to do something that is, that usually is not requested in politics. I'm asking you to actually think. Think. So Neb says, the year's 2028, making fun of me. Objectivist commentator Yaron Brook still thinks tariffs aren't primarily a negotiating tactic. Okay, so explain this. What is the negotiating tactic involved in threatening 25 to 100% tariffs on Taiwanese microprocessors and electronics? What are we trying to negotiate with Taiwan? What is it we want Taiwan? Do you want them to accept Guatemalan illegal immigrants or Taiwanese illegal immigrants? How many of those exist? What exactly do we want to get from Taiwan that we are willing to threaten 25 to 100% tariffs, which is what he did yesterday, on Taiwanese? And how does that help us when we go and negotiate with the Chinese? Oh, we want to force them to shift manufacturing here more rapidly. Not an endorsement, right? Really? How are we going to do that? I mean, how rapidly can you shift? Taiwan is already producing in Arizona ahead of schedule, and they're doing that because Biden subsidized it. So Biden used a carrot, Trump is using a stick. What? And how long do we actually have to impose these tariffs to get them to move, or is it just a threat? We're negotiating another Arizona plant. It's unbelievably, just stupid. And by the way, every time people say to Trump, this is just a negotiating tactic, right? Trump says, oh, no. Now, maybe that's his 3D chess again. I believe this. At 25% tariffs on Mexico and Canada, what are we trying to get from Mexico and Canada exactly that's worth disrupting the massive trade that we have with Mexico and Canada? What is it that we want to gain? Move manufacturing of automobiles into the United States? Why? This current system is working great. Why would you want to move them into the United States? What is the benefit of that? And at what cost? That means automobiles become more expensive. And indeed, if TSMC moved its chips to the United States, the bulk of its chips to the United States, chips would be dramatically more expensive. All those tech products that we import from Taiwan would become dramatically more expensive. So, what we want is to bring jobs to the United States when the United States is very close to full employment, and we don't want immigrants. We want to bring jobs to the United States, produce stuff that's more expensive than could be produced in the rest of the world. For what exactly? What is the purpose of this? What are we gaining from this? You're not getting standard of living. You're not getting quality of life. Standard of living, quality of life is better if you let the Taiwanese produce it. So what do you gain? Where's the upside? Where's the benefit? It's just amazing, stunning, ridiculous. And you're getting this like online, abolish all income taxes and, let's have only tariffs. Vivek is excited. Instead of taxing our citizens, he's quoting Trump. Do you support Trump's plan to abolish income taxes? Well, of course I support his plan to abolish income taxes, just not to replace it with tariffs. And And of course, who is the biggest beneficiary of 25% to 100% tariffs? Who's the biggest, on semiconductors from Taiwan, who's the biggest beneficiary of forcing Taiwan to move chip production to the United States? Who benefits from that? I mean, we don't have enough workers to do it, but let's assume we could get them. We'll increase immigration. Who's the biggest beneficiary of this? It's China. It slows economic growth in the United States. It increases our cost for tech, and it places a huge, disruption in our relationship between the United States and Taiwan. It sends a clear message to China: just wait until we move the chips to the U.S., and then you can go and invade. We don't care. I mean, this is a massive handout to the Chinese and to the Russians. So, it's really hard to understand the people that are so enthused about Trump when he seems now to be just doing a bunch of stuff that's pro-Russia. Which is just bizarre, right? I thought he was tough on China, pro-China. So anyway, by the way, given that there were other taxes, so my analysis before assumed all taxes were income taxes. Income tax itself only brings in $2.5 trillion a year. So to replace it, you would have to have a tariff of about 65%. Same logic applies to 65% tariff. Americans pay it, most of it, and the amount of goods you buy declines significantly, and therefore you never raise enough money. And just getting, and so you get a hole on the income tax. You never raise 2.5 trillion. And then what? You have to raise corporate taxes. You have to raise other taxes in order to compensate. What exactly happens? All right. And then I'll just add this. It is interesting that since Trump has renewed his talk about tariffs, and, his Treasury Secretary in his confirmation hearings basically told Congress that he would support a 2.5% tariff across the board, which is not much higher than what we have today, which is about 2% tariffs across the board. 2.5% tariff across the board, that he would support that. Well, Trump has made it clear that he wants a tariff much bigger than 2.5%, contradicting his Treasury Secretary. Anyway, what is one of the reactions in global financial markets? Because global financial markets, like the stock market, always watching these things and always evaluating these things and trying to figure out what effects they have. One of the impacts of Trump's continued threats to raise tariffs, which not only Yaron Brook takes seriously, but so does, so do financial markets, is for the dollar value, the value of the dollar to go up. Because as I've told you many times, if you impose high tariffs, the dollar will go up relative to other currencies. Because people will still desire dollars to invest in the United States, buy American bonds and things like that. They won't be able to get their dollars by exporting to the United States because the U.S. will not be buying as much because prices will have gone up. So they go into the financial markets and they buy dollars. So the value of the dollar goes up. Now, if the value of the dollar goes up, there's some equilibrium that's reached because what happens is now you can buy more imports, right? You can, the value of the dollar is higher. You can buy more yen or yuan, and you can buy more imports. However, if the value of the dollar goes up relative to the yuan and the yen and the euro and everybody else, our companies in the United States that export, that sell overseas, lose because people outside of the United States can't afford American products anymore because they're way too expensive. So while it doesn't change imports that much because now you've got a more powerful dollar, I'm assuming here, that tariffs are not at 65%, but something in between. It definitely hurts exports. Exports go down, and trade deficits actually expand. And if you, it's great if you travel. It's great for tourists. It's horrible if you're Caterpillar trying to sell, farm equipment overseas. It's terrible if you're a farmer trying to sell your farm product overseas. So, again, there's just no dimension. There's no way of thinking about tariffs from an economic perspective that actually makes any sense for the United States. And in that sense, if world leaders knew that, if the Chinese understand this, and I think they do, then they're going to call America's bluff. They're going to say, okay, bring on the tariffs, which is what happened in the first Trump administration. They called the bluff. We got tariffs. And by the way, that's also, people who claim, no, tariffs are just tools to negotiate. Well, then why did tariffs go up on steel during the first Trump administration? Why did he raise tariffs on steel, not just from China, from countries all over the world during the first administration? Why did other tariffs go up on, like, washing machines, if I remember right, during the first Trump administration? So Trump actually imposed tariffs in the first administration. If the EU or the Chinese or some big player actually calls, or Taiwan for that matter, calls Trump's bluff, the economic consequences are horrific for the United States. So maybe he's just faking, maybe he's just bluffing, all in an attempt to negotiate better deals. But my sense of Trump is he's not a particularly good deal maker. The better deals he negotiated with Mexico and Canada were marginal at best. We never got a really good deal with anybody else. It's all smoke and mirrors. It's all ego boosting, thumping of chest with no content and no value behind it. I have to say, and I have to say that I really try every morning to think, maybe I'm getting all this wrong, and maybe there's some really good in what Trump is doing. I mean, there are a lot of really smart people that are supporting Trump. There are a lot of smart people involved in the administration, the tech guys and so on. Maybe there's really something that I'm really not getting, that I'm missing. And I look, and I open up the paper, the equivalent of the paper, the internet, and I read stories, and I try to analyze, and I try to figure out, and where is the fatal flaw in my analysis? Why is it, where am I wrong about Trump? Where is he? Where is this? A new golden age for America would be phenomenal. It would buy us time to change the country philosophically. It would enrich all of us. We'd have more money. Life would be a lot better if we had a golden age. The tech that came out of Silicon Valley would be amazing. All of that would just be stunning. Andrew says, trust your instincts. I don't trust my instincts. Nobody should trust their instincts. So I constantly question them, which is good. And I constantly read and try to find and try to see it. And once in a while, I get tempted a little bit. Oh, okay, there's really going to be deregulation. Maybe they're really going to cut costs. They're really going to do this. But then I read more, and it's just, God, We will see. But God, at the end of the day, all my research, I came to the conclusion, no, I wasn't harsh enough on Trump. Maybe if I'd been even more harsh, maybe I could have made a difference. But I know I can't. I'm too small. But we live in crazy times. We live in crazy times. Oh wow, who is this guy? Yeah, I don't know what that is. All right. Somebody says on Twitter, a few years ago, Yaron Brook advocated for something to the effect that all religion should be discontinued. Yes. I didn't understand it at the time, was somewhat offended by it, but now I understand and wholeheartedly agree. I don't know if there's anything there, if there's anything meaningful there, but yeah, that is true. Religion is religion. All religions. Religion, qua any religion, is just it's what brings about this madness and stupidity. Because there is no way Trump, just take the economic policy, there's no way these kind of economic stupidities can be embraced and accepted by people unless they've adopted the epistemology of religion, which is an epistemology of faith, which is an epistemology of authoritarianism. They just cannot be. So, and the same is true on the left. You cannot have the crazy woke nonsense, without an element, a strong element of, authoritarian epistemology that's driving them. And all of that, its origins are really in religion. Religion tells you, do not think, do not judge, do not come to your own conclusions. There are smarter and better and more connected people out there who know more than you. Just follow their orders. Do what they tell you to do. Just kill your firstborn if that's when God tells you to. Just say yes, sir, and go and do it. And left, right, there's just a lack of willingness to use mind. And, religion is, it's worse than bad philosophy, because bad philosophy tries at least, makes the effort at least to appeal to reason. I mean, it undermines reason because usually, particularly if it's modern or even going back to Plato, but it tries, it pretends. Religion loses the pretense. Just do it. On faith. I just read a funny tweet. I have to read you this, which is unrelated to everything we're talking about, but it's so wacky, and it might be true. That's the wackiest part of all of it. It might actually be scientifically true. I don't know. But it's just this is why. All right, here we go. This is Bryan Johnson. You know who Bryan Johnson is? Bryan Johnson is, we're going to go for like 2.5 hours today, so don't worry. We're going to get to all the topics, and we're going to cover stuff. And if we go on tangents, that's okay. But here, Bryan Johnson is this guy who's basically wants to live forever. He's spending $2 million at least a year on his health, on everything else associated with it, and trying every single thing that people speculate out there that might enhance longevity. He is trying it, right? So he goes and he tries it, and he in a sense benchmarks everything. Now the problem is it's an experiment with an N of 1. It's very hard to do induction from an N of 1, but it's still interesting and to watch. Anyway, this is his tweet now. Oh, so one of the things he was doing I saw a documentary on him on Netflix. One of the things he was doing was he was basically injecting his son's blood into him. There is this theory in longevity that and that has some basis in fact, because they've done this with mice, that if you can replace your blood with the blood of somebody younger than you, if you can replace your plasma, I guess, with young plasma, you actually gain enormous benefits. In a sense, you slow down aging, you reverse the biological clock, whatever. So he was literally connecting to his blood and doing a blood transfusion where he was getting his son's blood, plasma from his blood. I guess he wasn't giving his son his blood because that would age his son, but he was getting plasma from his son, right? So this is vampire stuff, as Jennifer says. I think Peter Thiel was rumored to have done this years ago. This has been talked about quite a bit for a while now, that this is potentially life extending. Anyway, this is the tweet. He says, "I am no longer injecting my son's blood." I mean, imagine starting up a tweet with that. I mean, that in and of itself is kind of nutty, particularly if people don't know what you're doing and why you're doing it. So here he is. I'm a vampire. I'm no longer a vampire. So he says, "I'm no longer injecting my son's blood. I've upgraded to something else. Total plasma exchange." I have no idea what this means, but here it is. Steps. 1, take out all blood from body. Step 2, separate plasma from blood. Step 3, replace plasma with 5% albumin and IVIG. Now, he's done this. He's basically taken all the plasma out. Now, there are biologists out there. Where's Mary Benz when you need her? There are biologists out there who can tell us whether what the hell is going on here. Separate the plasma from the blood, and then replace plasma with 5% albumin, which I don't know what that is, IVIG, which I don't know what it is. And he's got a photo with a bag with all of his plasma. And he says, "Here's my bag of plasma, who wants it?" Now, he's younger than I am, so maybe I should inject his plasma into me. Maybe I should replace my plasma with his plasma. I mean, I'm making fun of him. Albumin is egg white protein. Egg white protein. Huh. Oh, he's got this. Here we go. Total plasma exchange therapy is an advanced longevity therapy with great effects in removing toxin, waste products, old, misfolded, and glycated proteins and immune complexes. It has shown measurable effects in delaying and reversing age-related disease, including dementia, as well as the capacity to reduce biological age based on various parameters, including blood proteomics and biological aging clocks. And this is, I guess, old plasma dilution reduces human biology, age, and clinical studies. So this is a clinical study that's out. I don't know if this is in mice or in dogs or in humans. All right, so yeah, replace your plasma with egg whites. I mean, good for him. I love the fact. I love the fact that I love the fact that here's a guy who's willing to try anything, and who's just going out there and trying stuff, and it's people trying stuff that's going to lead us to, I think, real successes. And I'm still hopeful that in the next 10 years, we will be able to, I will be able to, who the hell cares about you guys? I will be able to live a lot longer and a lot healthier than I would otherwise do. And some of that might actually be a consequence of Bryan. Now, I think Bryan's a kook. He's a little nuts, but sometimes you need nuts in order to, in order to advance humanity and achieve more. So, I'm I'm pretty excited about all this. I'm as soon as this show is over, I'm going to ask my wife to cook some egg whites. I guess not cook them. I guess we should just take them rare. And I'm going to go downstairs and ask the lab downstairs if they can put an infusion and just do the egg whites directly into my blood. What do you guys think? It'll be fun. Anyway, I'm excited about this. I love all this longevity stuff. I love the fact that this is now at the forefront of a lot of people's consciousness. I love the fact that a lot of people are doing experiments. And as a consequence of the interest that a lot of people have, there is also now a lot of money flowing into life extension. Unfortunately, none of the government money is flowing into it. They just want to focus on curing diseases. But you know what will cure diseases really, really fast? If we could extend life. But a lot of private money is flowing into this. And given the private money flowing into this, I'm excited. I just listened. I'm in the middle of listening to a Palihapitiya podcast with the 3 longevity experts talking about the pros and cons of different things and money flowing in. And one of them is really good at extending the lives of dogs, for example. There's a lot of research now using dogs because dogs live. They have significantly long lives, but significantly shorter than humans. So you can actually experiment with dogs and get reasonable results within a decade. You can actually figure it out. So, a lot of, people use mice, but mice, of course, not as similar to humans as dogs are. So, so there's a lot of research now using dogs. And they can extend the life of dogs and they can extend the life of mice. There's no question. There are a whole bunch of protocols now that extend the lives of shorts. Cats don't count because they have 9 lives. So it's hard to measure what, I'm kidding, but I don't know. But anyway, I'm excited about the research. I'm excited about all this stuff. And I'm willing and eager to be a guinea pig and try some of these things. I'm not sure I'm quite ready yet to go and have my blood replaced with egg whites. But generally, I'm pro all this stuff. All right, let's go back to Donald Trump. This is much more fun, though. All right, so I think there's no question this time around. Donald Trump is a very different Donald Trump than he was the first time. This time, Donald Trump has come in with a much more ambitious program and a plan. I think the program he had the first time was ambitious but vague and without specificity. It didn't have the people, the actual people, to. By the way, who is Brett Cooper? I've never heard of Brett Cooper. She did some kind of video with Ayn Rand, talking about Ayn Rand. So, but who is Brett Cooper? Who is? It's a woman, I take it, or a man. I don't know. But I don't know who that is, and I don't know what they are, and I don't know why anybody should care, other than they have a huge following. So if somebody wants to educate me, that'd be great. By the way, we're approaching our first hour in 10 minutes. And we're about, I don't know, $50 short of our first hour goal. So please consider, contributing, making a contribution to the show and contributing to that first hour goal of 250. You can do a sticker. You don't have to ask a question if you don't want to. I'm told she was on the Daily Wire, and she had a huge falling out with them. That's a good sign, but so did Candace Owen. Why did she have a falling out with them? Did she have a falling out with them for good reasons or bad reasons? Supkaski says she's a Gen Z conservative cultural commentator. Is she any good? Is she terrible? Is she bad Daily Wire or good Daily Wire. Carl says, Yaron does joke sarcasm, but he comes at us fast, and he doesn't use a different voice to signal sarcasm. See comics. We have to really pay attention. Yeah. I mean, I am funny, but I'm funny for intelligent people who can keep track. You have to keep track. You have to follow. You have to be fast. Choose Your Loadout says, she's okay, but I'm not her target audience as a male. So her target audience is female. All right. You guys are not being helpful. A female Ben Shapiro. But why did she have a falling out with Ben Shapiro? Is she better than Ben Shapiro because she had a falling out with him? All right. Irrelevant, really, to what we're trying to talk about, right? So Trump came in with a plan this time, and with staff and with people to implement that plan. And part of this plan is shock therapy. I mean, nobody has ever done as many executive orders as he has. And part of the plan is testing the limits of executive power. Testing the limits of executive power. So Trump has come in and said, I'm going to see how much I can get done without Congress. I'm just going to ram my stuff through and let them sue me. We saw that with, his immigration proposals. Some of them, again, are within the scope of the president's. Some of them are, he's violating the Constitution, or at least it seems that way. And he's come in by basically, I'm going to test this. Can a president be a lot more powerful than he has in the past? Because remember, in this first term, one of Trump's big frustrations was he couldn't do what he wanted to do. Everything had to go through Congress, and the courts reversed him, and there was a huge bureaucracy, and the deep state didn't allow stuff to get done. So he would say, I want X done, and nothing happened. He wanted to build a wall, and the wall didn't get built. So this time he's coming in and saying, I'm going to act like an authoritarian. I'm going to just say stuff. When people in the bureaucracy don't do what I tell them, I'm just going to fire them. Whether I have the authority or not to fire them, let them sue. Let's test this. Let's try it out. And this term, his presidency, is going to really test the courts, the court system, and the separation of powers that exists in the United States. The American system of separation of powers is going to be tested to the full under Donald Trump, because he has come in with the idea that I can do anything, and I will try to do anything, and they will have to stop me. The burden, instead of the burden on me to prove that it's within their powers, the burden is on them to stop me from getting stuff done. And that's how he's approached the executive orders that have gone through. So, for example, one of the executive orders that was issued is a temporary pause, although it's not clear for how long, and it's massively ambiguous, the whole project, but a temporary pause to all grants, loans, and federal assistance programs that was issued by the Office of the Budget, the Office of Management and Budget. This follows up on the executive order that put a pause to all foreign aid except to Israel and Egypt and Ukraine, interestingly. Again, was kind of a temporary, but this is broader. This is, nobody knows what this means because the language is very ambiguous. Pause to all grants, loans, and financial assistance programs. I know that, for example, at the NIH, scientists are freaking out because does this mean that their science grants are not going to be provided? That, like you're in the middle of a clinical trial right now, on a new cancer drug, and suddenly no more money because no more grants are being supplied? Is this new grants, old grants, follow-up grants? You're going to present at a conference your finding. You got a grant from the NIH to go and present on the finding. Is the grant still whole? Can I still go to the conference? Won't it go to the conference? So there's a lot of panic, and a lot of the agencies are trying to figure this out. In foreign aid, for example, there's this huge program that the United States engages in, which is to reduce AIDS in Africa. This is something that George Bush initiated. And while I'm very critical of it, the United States shouldn't be doing this. This isn't a program of the United States government. It's not the United States government's responsibility. It's been incredibly successful with regard to, stopping AIDS in Africa and saving, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, potentially lives over there. Well, there's a lot of programs like that, of charity programs to people who are starving and people so on in the world. And suddenly it stops. We can't do anything. We can't grant them any money. And indeed, some people in these agencies are trying to find ways around and ignore Trump's orders and trying to get the funding out anyway. So, for example, in one of the foreign aid offices, a bunch of them have been basically put on administrative leave. They still get paid. They still get their full salaries. But they're being investigated for purposefully trying to undermine the executive order from Donald Trump. And in other words, the government right now, I think most departments in the government right now are in complete panic and frantic. And I have to say, there's certain satisfaction I get from thinking about that. These frigging bureaucrats who spend our money on a gazillion things that they should not be, people who work for the government who, these are the moochers and looters. These are the looters. Yeah, the fact that they're a little frantic right now, not a bad thing. I have no sympathy for bureaucrats. I don't like them. It's why I don't like Washington, D.C. I hate going to Washington, D.C. because everybody around you is in a suit and tie, is a bureaucrat with his hand in your pocket. On the other hand, and I think this is more important, what about the rule of law? Congress has allocated this money to these programs explicitly. In funding, they actually have line items. This amount of money to go to this program, this amount of money to go to that program. According to the Constitution, it is the job of the Congress to allocate funds, to the purse strings. They're responsible for it. Now, I will argue that much of what Congress does, much of what the money that Congress allocates is unconstitutional. And that a proper president would fight it as unconstitutional. That's not what Trump is doing. He's not fighting it as unconstitutional. He's fighting it as, I don't like it. It's not consistent with my priorities. I have a mandate, and therefore I get to overrule Congress. For Trump to do that is clearly a violation of the Constitution. And Congress is, Trump is basically now placing himself above the law, above Congress, basically saying he will get to decide how money will be spent. It's not his job. The job of the executive is to execute what Congress decides. Not to replace Congress in its decision-making capacities. Now, the message sent is very circumstantial. It says, in the interim, to the extent permissible under applicable law, federal agencies must temporarily pause all activities related to obligation or disbursement of all federal financial assistance and other relevant agency activities that may be impacted by the executive orders, including but not limited to financial assistance for foreign aid, non-government organizations, DEI, woke gender ideology, and the Green New Deal, and what else? Right? And I mean, I'm all for stopping funding for all of those things. Yeah, all of those things. But that's what Congress needs to do. It needs to cut spending for all those things. That's the way our government works. This is basically Trump ignoring our system of government, our constitutional system of government, and just doing this unilaterally. And you know, nobody's ever seen anything like this. This is part of the disruption. This is why people are frantic. This is why people are panicking. They don't understand it. They don't know what it's all about. They don't know how it's going to apply to things. And people are losing their jobs. Most of them good. I mean, fire half the government employees out there. I'm fine with that. But this is going to lead to challenges in the courts. And so this is going to be really, really, really interesting to see how the courts navigate all this. This is going to be, Trump's term is going to be a term in which the court will get to really define executive power, the power of the purse. It will define, I think a lot of the regulatory agencies are going to be on the defensive, which is great. And the courts will have to decide whether these regulatory agencies are, whether these regulatory agencies, why it says John Galt would have been challenged in the courts. Yes, but notice what John Galt did. I mean, this is the thing nobody understands. What did John Galt do? He refused to become president. He refused the job. He turned it down. He said, I'd rather be tortured. Torture me rather than going and playing this ridiculous game. This is not what it's about. This is a distraction. This is stupid, and I won't support you. I won't keep you going. So no, John Galt turned them down. Not that Trump, by any means, is anything close to a John Galt. He is the exact opposite. And most of the stuff he would do, while some of the stuff he would do would be good for the economy and good for our freedoms, other stuff he would do would be bad for the economy and bad for our freedoms. And by destroying the system of government that we have, by destroying the constitutionality of the system of government that we have, destroying the separation of powers, destroying the role of Congress vis-a-vis the role of the presidency, Donald Trump will do more to destroy this country than any Democrat could. So, at the end of the day, the damage he will do to the system of government is far more dangerous than any benefit or harm that he might do to any specific program or any specific budget line item. It's the system of government that we have. It's the remnants of respect for the Constitution that we have that has kept this country free in spite of its authoritarian tendencies and in spite of the left and the right not caring about the Constitution and not caring about freedom and liberty and individual rights. And the courts, to their credit, have been the only branch of government that seems to care about the Constitution. And that's why, yes, I hope he gets sued and I hope he loses all these lawsuits. Because him winning would completely dismantle the American political system, which has kept us afloat in spite of the evil of the left and the evil of the right. So anyway, what Trump is doing is disruptive, and there's cause to, in a sense, cheer for the angst that it creates among our bureaucratic class. But it is really, really, really dangerous. And if the courts don't step up, if the courts don't stop him, then our system of government is finished, and what he will have done is set this country up for dictatorship. Whether that authoritarian comes from the left or from the right, I think it'll be from the right, but it doesn't matter. Trump will have been the pivot that allows this country to go in that direction. From a structural perspective, we have been saved by our Constitution. Now the Constitution is out, unless Trump is stopped. Trump is basically claiming a unilateral power to impound tens of millions of dollars of appropriated funds, which is in direct conflict with the Congress's constitutional power of the purse, and is a flagrant violation of a law called the Impoundment Control Act of 1974. Now, the courts could declare the law unconstitutional. That's fine. But again, it needs to go through the proper process. And let's hope this goes to the Supreme Court and we get some clarity. But Trump is basically acting like a nihilist. He's there to break stuff. He's there to break stuff. He's not there to build, create, improve, make America great again, really launch the golden age, because he has no clue how to do that. In spite of the fact that he's a real estate builder, he has no idea politically how to build this country, how to actually create a golden age. What he knows how to do is destroy. So he's knocking stuff down, hoping that he knocks the right stuff down, that by knocking the right stuff down, good things will happen. Quite a dangerous game he's playing. Now, it's likely recipients of frozen funds will sue the agencies and that are complying with the memo, and that will go to the court system, and we'll have to see how it plays out in court. Of course, one of the things that Trump has done is the administration has done is it's declared it only temporary. The impounding is only temporary, but again, how long is temporary? Not specified. There's almost no specificity in it. I think partially to protect themselves when they go to court. So it's going to be interesting, and we will see how this court rules. And it'll be interesting how quickly it goes to the Supreme Court, whether the Supreme Court stays whether the other courts rule in a particular way, where the Supreme Court takes it on an accelerated basis. Because in the meantime, funds are not being distributed. Now, I'm fine with funds not being distributed. I just want to make sure that we don't throw out the American political system at the same time as we cut government spending. I want to cut government spending more than anybody out there. But I want to do it by preserving the American constitutional framework. I don't believe that moving towards authoritarianism, even if that means smaller government, is on net better for the rest of us. So we will see. This is a story we will definitely be following in the days and weeks to come. What money is approved, what money isn't. Note also that this, I think a really interesting aspect of this, aspect Ayn Rand talked about a lot, is the more government does stuff like this, arbitrary, we're freezing stuff, but maybe not all stuff, some stuff we decide to freeze, the more this opens it up to cronyism. The more incentive there is for pressure groups to form to say, no, what about our stuff? What about my stuff? And fights to erupt about who gets what. And I wouldn't be surprised if, I don't know, some of the people close to Trump, their particular causes, their particular line items in the budget, they don't get frozen. The more arbitrary the power of government becomes, the more cronyism you get. The more arbitrary the power of the government becomes, the more swamp animals you create, the more swamp animals you build, the more swamp animals there are, because they've got more stuff to feed off of. And this is why when Trump says he wants to clear the swamp, the swamp from the swamp animals, and want to get rid of the swamp animals, he's only feeding them. He might replace them. We might have different swamp animals, right-wing swamp animals instead of left-wing swamp animals, tech CEOs instead of, I don't know, some other CEOs. But at the end of the day, these kind of things, these kind of arbitrary, unspecified, vague notions are incredibly destructive and will breed more people into this swamp. All right. One of the things that Trump is, doing, which is I think is good, is he got rid of the affirmative action thing. That is the best thing he's done so far. That is amazing. It was in his power because it was based on an executive order. He just undid an executive order. He's not getting rid of DEI across the entire government. Some of that will be tricky because some of that is in legislation. So again, they're going to have to reverse the legislation somehow. One way you could really get rid of affirmative action more permanently, and this is from an essay by Alex, whose family name I cannot pronounce, the immigration expert at Cato Institute, who's very good in immigration and other things. This is an idea he has. He says, one of the ways we can make the affirmative action stick, because a future president could just come and reverse it, right? It's an executive order, is by finding ways to stop all government collection of race-based data. All data on race and ethnicity should be, there should be no, collecting that data. It should be gone from the, from all the different questionnaires that the government asks, all the different things, it's everywhere. I always ignore it. I sometimes get in trouble. So when you do the census, you're supposed to answer all the questions. And when we come to the race or ethnicity, I leave it blank. And then last time I did it, for weeks, they came knocking on my door and they said, you have to fill this out. I said, I won't. I'm not going to fill it out. What are you going to do, arrest me? And in the end, they just gave up on me. So stop collecting the data. And then even if they want to restart affirmative action, they would have to restart collecting the data, which would take them years. So I thought that was a really clever idea that Alex Noraste had, and he's a clever guy. He's good. All right, let's talk about the stock market. So yesterday we talked about why the stock market went down, and I gave you all the reasons why DeepSeek was a disruptor and why the market adjusted. And the reality is that I'm no expert in AI. And while I tried to caveat a lot of what I said yesterday, I probably said things that ultimately would turn out not to be true about the technical aspects of AI and about the real revolution that is DeepSeek, if it is such a revolution. What I wanted to explain to you was, given that people perceive it that way, whether it's right or wrong, valuations of stocks like NVIDIA are going to change. And I think what's happened overnight is people said, okay, something has changed here because DeepSeek is new, it's different. We don't exactly know how in every element. We don't exactly know how they did it, what exactly they did. We don't know all the elements in terms of what it does. But what this really brings to the forefront, this is the point I want to emphasize, is we're talking about a new industry. We're talking about an industry in which there are going to be lots of changes, lots of new things, lots of surprises. Not quite black swans, but gray swans. Things that you maybe didn't anticipate, but you should have anticipated in the region. We don't exactly know how it's all going to play out. And therefore, we should be a little skeptical about the idea that we know now, we know today who the winners and losers are. We can make guesses. We can make estimates based on the best knowledge that we have. NVIDIA clearly has a huge leg up on other chip makers in terms of who's going to power the AI revolution. We just don't know how many of their chips are going to be needed, whether all that power is going to be as valuable as we think it is. We don't know. And therefore, being a little skeptical of the valuation based on only good things are going to happen is a healthy thing in financial markets. And today, people reevaluated and said, okay, maybe we overdid it yesterday. There's a lot we don't know. NVIDIA still is probably going to be a winner here. Maybe it shouldn't have gone down 17%. Maybe it should have only gone down 12, 13%. So we're going to price it up today. And again, I mean, this is a bunch of different investors trying to figure out what the right valuation is. And some think it's high, some think it's low, and they trade. So today, NVIDIA, I think last I looked, was up 5%, which is nothing compared to 17% drop. Remember, when a stock drops, in order to make it back up, it almost has to go up double the percentages, right? So let's say a stock is at $100 and it drops 20%. Now it's at 80. If it goes up 20%, that puts it at what? Not at 100. That puts it at, 20%. That's a 1696. So it has to go up more percentage-wise to make up for the 20% drop than it dropped, right? So the fact that it went down 17 and up 5 doesn't put it at 12. It puts it at lower than 12. Right? Anyway, the point is that the market now is going to be a little bit more thoughtful, a little bit more skeptical of the rosy, there's only upside, there's no downside scenarios for AI companies. I think that's true of OpenAI, which has this unbelievable valuation, given that they have no, their monetization of what of their product is tiny, and given that it's going to be a very competitive space, they've got a very high valuation. It could be that the valuation turns out to be right or turns out to be too low. But the point is that what DeepSeek reminded markets yesterday is that there's a lot of uncertainty. And where there's a lot of uncertainty, that uncertainty needs to be priced. It needs to be incorporated into the price of a stock. You can't just assume only good things will happen. Surprises on the downside are also going to happen. And they're probably going to be bigger than surprises on the upside that are more easily to predict. So that is what is going on. I did find, I think Matt Levin, who writes a really informative regular daily column for Bloomberg on finance, I had this really clever idea. He said, one way DeepSeek could have made a lot of money. He doesn't know if they did this, but you can imagine you have a potential disruptor, right? DeepSeek is a disruptor. Now, notice that DeepSeek was invented by a hedge fund, a fund that deals with financial markets. How are you going to make money from DeepSeek? it faces the same problem all the other companies have. It's a highly competitive market. It's offering the product right now basically for free. How's it going to make money? Well, what Levin suggested was, here's the way it could have done it. You've got this product that is going to disrupt AI. It's probably going to cause people to reevaluate the value of AI in the marketplace. It'll wipe out tens, hundreds of billions of dollars worth of value when people realize you have this product. So what you do is, before you release the product, you short, i.e. you bet on the stocks going down, all the stocks you think are going to be negatively affected by your release of the product. Then you release the product. You let the market absorb, integrate the meaning of that. Stock prices go down of all these companies. You shorted them. You make a killing, and you've monetized your product. You've raised money enough to build the next generation and the future generations and so on. That's how you get capital to recapitalize and to build out your business. It's by shorting your competitors and then releasing a product in there to surprise them. That would be really clever if they'd done that. So he summarizes as that disruptors can profit not by selling their product more cheaply than incumbents, but by giving it away after shorting the stock of the incumbents. It's a clever strategy. It's a clever strategy. You can imagine Microsoft, before releasing Internet Explorer for free, shorting Netscape stock. I wonder how that would have played in the antitrust case that was brought against Microsoft if they actually had done that. They didn't, obviously, but it would not have gone well for them if they had actually done that. All right. What else do we want to say about stock markets? I think we're good. Yeah. All right. Let's talk a little bit about Gaza. We haven't talked about the Middle East in a while. As you know, Israel cut a deal with Hamas for an exchange of hostages for Hamas prisoners. For every 3-4 that Hamas releases, there's a whole formula of how they calculate this. 200 Hamas terrorists are released. But on top of that, in addition to that, Israel also agreed to withdraw from much of Gaza, including from this passage in central Gaza that basically split Gaza into north and south, where they'd created a so-called humanitarian zone in the south and emptied the north out of most of its population. And this was done in order to basically spend time in the north dismantling Hamas's infrastructure and destroying it while minimizing civilian casualties. And the idea was, we won't let the civilians come back to the north until we have completely dismantled their infrastructure in the north, and we won't let them come to the north until we have the capabilities of monitoring everybody who moves to the north, preventing Hamas fighters from moving to the north, and preventing them from moving weapons to the north. Well, part of the deal was, we're going to let them move from the south to the north. We're going to inspect them, maybe. Maybe we're going to have American contractors inspect them. Basically, Israel has withdrawn from the Netzarim corridor, which is what split the Gaza into north and south. There's a coastal road in which the Gazans can travel north by foot or by donkey, I guess, by cart and donkey. Tens of thousands of them are streaming north. Nobody is stopping them to check if they carry weapons or not. They are marching north. I mean, they are marching to rubble. Their homes are gone for the most part. But they are celebrating. They view this as a victory. They view this as a victory over Israel. Supposedly, on another road that goes north-south, the Americans are setting up, American contractors are setting up a checkpoint where they will check vehicles to make sure they don't have weapon systems inside. But now that Israel's gone from the Netzarim corridor, that means the Gazans can go travel north-south, all kinds of paths. Israel's not going to do anything about it as long as there's still hostages to be released. The Americans don't have the capacity, the contractors don't have the numbers or capacity to monitor, particularly at night, every piece of the land between the north and the south. Basically, Israel has completely capitulated, completely given up on any goal that would weaken Hamas. And Hamas has declared victory. It is in complete control of the Gaza Strip. It's in complete control of all of the Gaza Strip, with the exception of the corridor goes east-west near the Egyptian border and some areas that Israel is still occupying along the Israeli border. But the heart of Gaza is basically under control of Hamas. They control all the humanitarian aid that goes in, and if you don't think that weapons are being smuggled in with the humanitarian aid, then I've got the bridge to sell you. They will rearm, reestablish themselves. They have recruited 15,000 additional Hamas fighters to compensate for the fact that Israel has killed somewhere between 20 and 25,000 of them. Israelis are just horrified by the fact that after a year and 4 months of war, Hamas seems like it is unhurt. Their uniforms are clean, even though they've been under constant bombing. They've got weapon systems. They're handling policing powers in Gaza. They're managing everything. They are in control, in command. I've told you for a year and 4 months that Netanyahu is losing this war. I told you for a year and 4 months that Israel does not have what it takes, not militarily, but in terms of the willingness to do what is necessary to win, that Netanyahu hesitates, delays, and refuses to unleash the real military power of the Israeli military. And as a consequence, Israel has lost. Hamas has won. I don't think many people predicted this. I did, but I don't think many people predicted this. Israel has taken 400 casualties in Gaza, which is horrific. A lot fewer than all the military experts expected. Israeli military is unbelievably good at what it does. This is not a military defeat. This is a political defeat. And this is a political defeat institutionalized by Trump, who twisted Netanyahu's arm to cut this deal, this surrender deal, what I call a surrender deal. Now, again, I'm happy for all the hostages being released. Happy to see them back home. Happy to see them away from the horrors of Gaza. But the reality is that more hostages will be taken in the future, that this is just the beginning, that this war that we just engaged in, that Israel just engaged in, is just the beginning. It is not the end. It is not conclusive in any kind of way. Trump is trying to end it by kicking out the Palestinians, or by convincing Arab countries to accept the Palestinians, to allow them to leave Gaza and to go to Egypt or Jordan. And again, there was some talk about even Albania. And that is a solution. That's a great solution. Let hundreds of thousands of people go and settle in new places, start a new life. But of course, the Arabs and the Palestinians do not want this. And the world doesn't want it. And the UN doesn't want it. The Palestinians are the only refugees in history that are purposefully not settled anywhere. They're purposely kept as refugees 80 years after they became refugees. 75. They're purposely kept in refugee camps in Lebanon, in Jordan, and other places in the Middle East, not allowed to become citizens, not allowed to actually have a life. Even if some of them go to Western Europe or America and start a life and become citizens of their adopted countries, the United Nations still counts them as refugees. They don't do that to any other group of refugees in the world. Refugees have always existed. They resettle, they start a new life in a new place. Gazans should leave Gaza. They should want to leave Gaza and go start a life in a place that has a lot more upside for them than Gaza does. Gaza has a lot of downside. So, good for the Trump administration for trying, but it's a fantasy that such a deal could be cut. Jordanians don't want more Palestinians. They have enough. And if they take them in, they'll keep them as refugees, which will just create a massive problem for Jordan and for Israel. The Egyptians certainly don't want them. They don't have refugee camps in Egypt. They don't want to start any now. And they don't want to settle them in Egypt as Egyptians. This is a Trump and the religious right in Israel's fantasy that somehow the Arab world will change and embrace the Palestinians and make them, treat them as individuals and make them citizens of their respective countries. It's just not going to happen. It would be ideal if it did. Israel would love to kick the Palestinians out of Gaza, but where are they going to go? So, Trump administration is not helping. And indeed, because it forced Israel to lose. And it's going to be really interesting to see how this plays out now, because there is no solution that Netanyahu and Trump and the Arab world are going to be happy with. Some grand big deal is probably in the making, where Saudis recognize Israel, Hamas releases the remaining hostages, money starts flowing into Gaza, and who knows, how the political situation in Gaza actually gets settled. Hamas is not going to go anywhere. It's not going to disappear. Maybe it's some power sharing agreement. Maybe it's some temporary governance by the Saudis and the United Arab Emirate with Hamas having an advisory role or being there as on the sideline. No matter what it is, it's going to end badly. The Palestinians need to be crushed, defeated. And until they are, and unless they are, all we're going to have, all Israel's going to face is war and hostility. All right. Let's see, where are we? Enric says, Trump's Middle East envoy, Wikoff, has monetary connections to and supports Qatar. Yeah, but he does. But so does Trump. His son-in-law has a massive fund that got a $2 billion investment from the Saudis. $2 billion in Jared Kushner's fund. His first-time fund, by the way. He'd never run a private equity fund. And the first investor wrote him a $2 billion check from the Saudi national whatever, right? How did he get $2 billion? Why did he get $2 billion? You don't think that has strings attached? We can talk about Hunter Biden. You don't think Jared Kushner's relationship with the Saudis has strings attached? You got to be kidding me. Saudi money, United Arab Emirates money, Qatari money is everywhere, on the left and on the right. in American politics. And that's not going to help resolve anything. Only going to make things more murky and more problematic. And Israel was so happy that Trump got elected. We'll see how happy they are as all this plays out. All right, let's see. What do we want to talk about? All right. I think we got all that. All right. I just wanted to point this out. It was launched today. I don't have a lot to say about this, and I don't know exactly how it's going to work and what it means. Just a few observations about X Money. X Money is a new program within Twitter X. It's a deal with Visa that will now facilitate a digital wallet, peer-to-peer payments, transfer funds directly from bank accounts, all using Visa Direct. So it's basically a joint venture between X and Visa to facilitate digital wallets and money transfer across the platform and I guess across the internet. It's part of the effort of Elon Musk to create what I think would be truly innovative and amazing if he actually did it, to create a AI agent, an everything app, an app that can do everything, an app that can. This is something the Chinese had. Maybe not as sophisticated as this will be, because this supposedly will have AI at the back, but they had where you could use, your social media also is the place you bought stuff, was also, you banked there, it was you could do everything there. And I think Twitter is striving to mimic what Alibaba and WeChat, I think it was WeChat, did 10, 15 years ago, just more sophisticated and more up to date. What I found I think this is exciting. I think it's great. I think it'll make life easier. I still haven't figured out how all this money stuff works on X. I haven't figured out how to do advertising on Twitter or how to monetize my feed on Twitter. That would be cool if we could monetize my feed on Twitter somehow. So if anybody wants to help me monetize the feed on Twitter, let me know how to do that. Let me know if you have ideas on how to do that. So that's exciting that they're introducing this and they're doing this, and that kind of the everything app is something that is still in the works and is still being developed, and this is the financial aspect of it. I did find it really interesting and curious that Musk chose to do this with Visa. I expected, and I think a lot of people expected, that he would launch this with crypto. That crypto would be kind of the backbone of whatever financial stuff X or the Everything app actually engaged in. Now, I think it makes complete sense to use Visa, not to use crypto. Visa's cheaper, easier, more well-known, easier for people to adopt. It has massive benefits, which crypto doesn't. Crypto's expensive. It requires a separate set of knowledge than a typical use of credit cards and debit cards. It requires a new infrastructure. It requires a lot of things we don't have. But it is interesting that he didn't announce this with the Dogecoin or with Bitcoin or with Ether or something like that, but straight out to do it with a conventional platform, because the fact is conventional platforms like Venmo and PayPal and these others are incredibly easy to use, incredibly useful, and transaction costs are basically zero, and why you would need this whole other stuff is a real question, and it'll be interesting to see how X's relationship with crypto evolves over time. All right, finally, I think we come to actually Jerry Morton's $50 super chat. Jeremy says, "Congratulations to Blake Scholl and Boom Supersonic for today's supersonic flights. Amazing and inspiring." Absolutely. I mean, I remember years and years ago, and I don't know when this was, people talked about there was this objectivist who quit his job and was going to start a company that was going to build supersonic jets. And I was incredibly skeptical. Like, build supersonic jets? Like the Concorde? I mean, they're never going to allow you to do that. They're going to shut you down. The regulators won't allow you. They shut down Concorde. They destroyed that program. There's too much regulations, too many controls. You can't do it. Can't do it. But that's the thing about entrepreneurs. They don't listen to me or anybody else. They go out and do it. And Blake got a team together, and they started designing a plane, and they pitched it to airlines, and they got some interest. And look, it's taken a long time because they had to pitch it to regulators and get approval from regulators, and they had to figure out what to do with noise, and they had to figure out what to do with all the things that Concorde got wrong. They had to fix all those issues and build a commercial supersonic jet that will carry passengers on, let's say, New York to London, or LA to Tokyo, or New York to Tokyo, or LA to Auckland, or to Sydney, or to Shanghai. These flights, and even LA to New York, if you can solve the noise problem, and cut our travel time by half for some of these routes. And they have, over the last 10 years or so, overcome obstacle after obstacle after obstacle. They were told nobody will build the engines for this jet. They will never raise enough capital to make it happen. And yet, they've raised the capital. They built engines. And in a flight today with the prototype, which is a smaller version of the larger jet that will be commercial, they today, for the first time, as a private company, has broken the speed of sound in flight. They did it. They did what everybody thought was impossible. The audacity, the courage, the determination, the hard work, the intelligence, the planning, and brilliant execution, the hiring of phenomenal talent. Because you've got to have talent to do this. It's not one man. Blake had to hire phenomenal people to surround himself with. And by the way, today he tweeted, he's still hiring. He's looking for more people. Now that they've done this, the next step is to build the jet, to build the commercial size, full size jet, and to start flying it. And for that, he's going to need more talent. So Boom is hiring. I mean, how exciting would that job be? How much fun would that be to be involved in something like that? So, congratulations to Blake. I've known Blake for a long, long time, way before Boom, I think. I met him. He's a great guy, obviously being unbelievably successful, and this is such a tremendous achievement. I mean, it's so inspiring. It should really give you a sense of what is possible in this world and how much can be achieved in spite of all these horrible obstacles. If you can fly a supersonic jet, what can't you do in spite of all the regulations and the bad press and the restrictions and obstacles, and it costs a huge amount of money, and you can raise that kind of capital. Think about raising that kind of capital. And he's already got airlines that have ordered this in advance, and United is going to fly in them, and American is going to fly in them. And of course, once he gets this done, other companies will start thinking about doing the same thing. Maybe even Boeing and Airbus, and now there's a Chinese airplane company will pivot and try to build their own supersonic jets. And this will be the beginning of a real aviation revolution. So yeah, salute to Boom and to Blake and to achieving what everybody thinks is unachievable, whatever you think is impossible. Go out there and just do it. Do it smartly. Do it through planning. Do it with determination. Do it by surrounding yourself with great people with great skills and talent and ability. But just do it. There's very few things that cannot be done. All right. That is the news for January 28th, 2025. All right. Let me remind you of a few things. This show is not possible without the support of you guys, listeners to the show. And supportive listeners like yourself who want to trade value for value and therefore provide support to the show, provide value to me so that I can continue to produce the show. So thank you to all of you who do that. Those of you who'd like to do it, you can do it here on the Super Chat. We're about $100 short of the second hour goal, which is $500. And we've got about 15 minutes to make up that $100. So please consider doing that. You can use a sticker like Wes did, $50 sticker. Thank you, Wes. Really, really appreciate that. You can use a sticker like Wes, or you can do other means by which to support the show. Well, the other mean is a super chat, or you can do it through a monthly contribution on Patreon.com, Patreon or PayPal. Patreon, I think, is easier to set up and make it a regular monthly thing, but the monthly is predictable. It's knowable to me. It's easier, and you don't have to think about it. You don't have to go back if you want to make additional contributions. You can just do it once, and it's done. So please consider doing all that and supporting the show. I really, really appreciate it. We also have a sponsorship from the Ayn Rand Institute. The Ayn Rand Institute right now is encouraging people to join the Institute on February 2nd, Sunday, at 2 p.m. East Coast time, for a free webinar on the occasion of Ayn Rand's 120th birthday, 120th. The Institute will be premiering the online release of Ayn Rand's 1980 interview with radio host Raymond Newman. It's a phenomenal interview. It's just stunning how good she is. They will be discussing also how, the historical context for the interview and how it was preserved and so on. Ayn Rand in this interview discusses how to save America, her view on who is a monster, and what are the critical factors for happiness, how to achieve happiness. So it's an awesome interview. Check it out. You can register and participate in this live event by going to aynrand.org, AYNRAND.org/start here, start here, one word, /start here, and register for it. Also, a sponsor of the Yaron Brook Show is Alex Epstein. Alex Epstein has a phenomenal Substack where he publishes his talking points. These amazing points about how to communicate pretty controversial, radical ideas. The ideas about fossil fuels and about energy and about climate change. You will become such a better communicator by listening to Alex. I mean, and you'll just know a lot more. Like Alex just put out a Substack about what the Energy Department should do to liberate American energy. And the thing with Alex is, that senior people within the Energy Department, senior people within the Trump administration are reading this Substack and taking it seriously and are likely to implement, some, if not all, of his suggestions. So by reading his Substack, you're at the cutting edge of what the Trump administration might be doing in the one area where it might be doing a lot of good to compensate a little bit for all the bad that it's doing elsewhere. All right. Let's see. let us turn now to the super chat. And I had one super chat that was asked at the end of yesterday's show, but it was at the end after I basically signed off, so I didn't get to it. So I will start with that one, and then I'll go to the $50 questions, and then we'll go to the rest. In the meantime, we're $92 short of our second hour goal. So if anybody out there is up for $100 or for $50 or for $20, would like to ask a question or just make a show of support, please consider doing that. It would be great if we actually met our goal for today. All right, Micah Ellis says, given how realistic AI images and videos are becoming, do you think there should be some sort of watermark applied to them so people know they are AI? Look at this picture of Yaron having a beer with Trump, proper law. Well, I don't know exactly how to deal with this, right? So you'd have to really think through the legal implications here. So first of all, it has to be that I own my image. So you can't just take my image and plop me onto a photo of Trump. That should be illegal, to use my image without my consent. So we have to get much better in terms of defining property rights over what is ours. And our image is ours. You can't just take it and do whatever you want with it. So that is part of the solution. It might be that you have to put some kind of identifier if you're making certain claims about the origin of a particular video or the origin of a particular photograph. I mean, I haven't really thought this through, and it would be great to get one of our legal minds on here to really consider this and think through how this should be done. But something to differentiate the real thing and a clear recognition of who owns what. I own my image. You own your image. So people cannot make assemblies, cannot make a movie with me, cannot use my image to convey ideas that are contradictory to my ideas or to whatever, right? And I think there's some law already supporting that. All right, Dave just came in with Dave Dean just came in with $50 sticker and got us much, much closer to our goal. So we're at only $38 to go to get our second hour goal, and we've got 7 minutes to do it in, so plenty of time to get $38. Thank you, Dave. Really, really appreciate that. All right, we're going to be here for a while because we get lots of questions. All right, let's do Oyvind. We'll do Oyvind because I said, and then we'll jump to the $50 ones. Oyvind says, Brett Cooper, big conservative star, who split with the Daily Wire, just released a trailer to her upcoming YouTube show, pays big tribute to Ayn Rand. Maybe a show you could get an invite to. The tribute is beautiful. All right, I'll check it out, and we'll see if I can somehow connect and get on her show or do something with her. That would be really cool. That'd be really cool. Thank you, Oyvind. I really appreciate that. Dave Dean just did another $50. Thank you, Dave. Really appreciate it. So we are now over our second hour target. So we're now raising money for our third hour target, which we are going for $238 additional dollars to get to that third hour target. Adri says for $50, thank you, Adri. Thanks, Yaron, for digesting the news for me. My pleasure. Thank you for consuming it and for showing appreciation. Boris, 150 shekel. People were asking, what is 150? It's shekel, it's Israeli. It's actually Israeli new shekel because in the 1980s, Israel got rid of 2 zeros and replaced the lira with the shekel because inflation was so high. And the inflation continued to be so high that they had to get rid of the shekel and drop another 2 zeros, or maybe it was 3 zeros, and they called the currency that replaced it the new shekel, and then they got inflation under control, and since then, Israel has had the new shekel. Boris says, thank you for all you do, Yaron. Love your show. Really appreciate that, Boris. Thank you. Thank you for the support. Dave Goodman says, you know any good real estate agents in Austin, Texas? I do not. I'm looking to buy an investment property to rent out. Any Objectivist agents? I do not know anybody, but if there's anybody listening out there, get in touch with me. I'll put you in touch with Dave Goodman so that you can represent him. He's a good guy. Rents are down in Austin quite a bit, but Dave is betting that rents are going to go up in the future. So now is the time to be buying investment property in Austin to put out to rent. So, yeah. If there's anybody out there, I'm sure there's an Objectivist real estate agent in Austin, Texas. It's given how many Objectivists are there, there's got to be an Objectivist real estate agent. Val Thor. This may merit one of your deep dive sessions, but how do we save California? The overtaxation, crime, overregulation, incompetence, see recent fires and the like, lockout fend. Is there hope? Well, I mean, I think there probably is, because I think things have gotten bad enough so that people are going to reject the far left and start shifting the agenda in California away from the far left's agenda slowly, not as fast as I would like, and not thoroughly enough. But look, what California needs is what the rest of the country needs, but California needs it in spades. They need to start by dramatically cutting regulations. Cut regulations dramatically. And then they need to start completely revamping and shrinking the welfare state. The California welfare state is massive. So you can't eliminate it all at once, but you need to cut it. But you have to begin with regulations, because cutting regulations will bring back businesses, will encourage businesses to grow. Labor regulations. It's almost impossible to fire somebody in California. All the regulations about overtime pay and everything that has to do with the regulation of labor, regulation of business, all of that needs to be scrapped in California. And really needs to be eliminated. So massive deregulation would be a starting point for California. Then you would have to, that would create business activity. That's good. Then you would have to start shrinking the welfare state. And as you shrunk the welfare state, and as tax revenue increased because of, greater economic activity, because of deregulation, start cutting taxes. And cut taxes for the wealthy. It would be great if California established some kind of flat tax. Or imagine if California eliminated all income taxes, corporate taxes, and went to sales tax. That would never happen, because so much of the revenue in California comes from capital gains taxes. The capital gains taxes of all the startups that make huge amounts of money, and when they sell, the capital gains is taxed, or when they go public, capital gains is taxed, and at the state level, not just at the federal level. So you could imagine, that California probably would not want to get rid of the capital gains taxes. Okay, so lower the income tax, lower the income tax significantly. Keep the capital gains tax, lower the income tax. And if and if they don't want to be, if they want, they could also lower the sales tax. California also has a high sales tax on top of everything else. So, basically it's deregulate. It's get rid of DI programs. A big part of it is get rid of environmental regulations. That's the toughest one. There's a lot of developers who would love to build homes in California, which would lower the cost. I know in Orange County, you could build hundreds of new homes, which would dramatically lower the cost of living in California, lower the price of a home. And yet they can't build. People still want to live in California, but they can't build because of environmental regulations. Get rid of the environmental regulations. There was a plan to build a tunnel between Orange County and I forget the county next door, and there's a mountain range in between, and they were going to build a tunnel. Never built a tunnel because of environmental regulations. So you got to get rid of those so that you can build. Maybe Mark Andreessen can run for governor and implement his build, baby, build strategy. But yeah, that's what California needs. Deregulate on a massive scale and then cut taxes. Silvanos, theoretically, does the U.S. have the power to forcibly relocate the Palestinians to the U.S.? Plenty of room out west. Well, I mean, if it's willing to use coercion, sure. If it's willing to use force, it has the power to do it. But, I mean, the challenge there is I wouldn't want to relocate them as a group to any place because their collectivism is barbaric. Their philosophy is barbaric. And so I don't mind them immigrating as individuals, but just bringing in several 100,000 of them and plucking them in the middle of the desert in, I don't know, Arizona, you're creating the equivalent of a little Islamist state. It's exactly the people you don't want immigrating to the United States. Islamists. I've talked about this. You know, not just Arabs, but Islamists, people who are dedicated to the, expansionist, totalitarian, authoritarian version of Islamic religion, where they want to impose their religion on the rest of us. So you don't want more people like that. So, but could they just, in terms of, do we have enough power? Yeah. But, but I don't think we want to. All right, let's see. If you want immigrants, there are much better places from which to take them. Let me see, make sure I thank all the sticker people. Nevfal, thank you. Dave Dean actually did, Dave, of course, I thanked. He did 2 50s. Wes did a 50. Thank you, Wes. And let's see. There was Johnny Ruiz, Mike Dial, and Mary Aline, thank you. Enric, thank you. And Mark Goodkin and Silvanos. And yeah, all of you guys, thank you. Really appreciate the support. Really appreciate you getting us to where we are. We still got a bunch of Super Chat questions, so there's still time for you two to join in as a supporter of the Yaron Brook Show and get us closer to that third hour goal. We're now into the third hour. It's 5:03, so this is the third hour. We've gone for over 2 hours. Please consider supporting the show, even with a small contribution, even $2, $3, $1. Everything helps. Everything adds up. Oinvind, thoughts on John Fetterman on politics? I mean, I'm impressed by John Fetterman. He has a combination of views that I like. He's a real centrist on many, many issues. He's good in Israel. He's anti the left wing of the Democratic Party on a lot of issues where he should be anti them. I don't know enough about all his views on economic issues and others, but generally, he's the kind of Democrat that could bring back the Democratic Party, could, create a centrist, kind of a centrist Democratic Party that rejects the far left, rejects the nuts. But he's been good on a lot of things. He just keeps popping up on different issues where he's actually really good. So yeah, I'm impressed by John Fetterman. I also like the fact that he's kind of a casual guy. He doesn't go for this dress up in fancy suits and a tie and all this, a showmanship and costume wearing. He strikes me as genuine. He strikes me as genuine. I don't like tattoos generally. I'm willing to forgive them in the case of John Fetterman. Hopper Campbell, could forcibly relocating Gazans constitute ethnic cleansing. Yeah, it would constitute ethnic cleansing, but do we care? Right? I mean, if ethnic cleansing means separating people from the land on which they were born, then yeah, in some cases, so be it, right? Given the horror and the evil that they are perpetrating where they live, get them to place or get them dispersed in a way that they can't perpetuate that evil. The alternative is even more brutal, which we're going to get to in a minute because I think people have asked me about it. Supikask, Trump screwing Taiwan over is beyond evil. Yeah, and it's beyond mindless, and it's beyond crazy. It's just stupid. It's Trump being an idiot. Supikask, will tariffs affect used car prices? Sure. Tariffs will increase the price of new cars, which will increase the price of used cars because demand for used cars will increase. And fewer people will buy new cars. More people will buy used cars. So demand for used cars, again, will increase. So yes, used car prices should go up. And few people will sell their cars because they don't want to buy new cars. So there'll be shortage of supply will go down, demand will go up, recipe for prices going up. Gail, I've noticed if someone is citing God, they're completely blocked from reaching reason. Yeah, I mean, I think that's right. I think if you're to the point where you're literally quoting God and God says this and God believes this and God wants you to do this, you can't debate them. You can't, I mean, basically they've got a mythical being whispering in their ear. I mean, what argument, what debate can you have with somebody like that? No, he's not. God doesn't actually want you to do that. Esoteric dichotomy. What is one science fiction, sci-fi tech you wish you could have? Oh, that one's easy. Beam me up, Scotty. The transporter. I mean, God, if I could just, I need to be in London today. Just be in London like that. That would be so cool. That is the one I want. I want to be able to transport myself anywhere I need to be. I hate traveling. I hate the travel part of it. I like being where I need to be. What I don't like is the traveling there. Paul, for your great attacks on TMD. Who's TMD? What's TMD? TMD. TMD. I don't know what TMD is. Keep up the great work. Thank you. Yeah, let me know what TMD is. What am I missing? Urban Porcupine. In the last episode of All In, Chamath Palihapitiya, name I can't pronounce, supported the U.S. government owning 50% of Tic Tok and advocated for government equity positions in companies as a revenue source. I was horrified. Yes. This is why I said these tech right-wing guys could be more dangerous. Oh, Trump mindless syndrome. I don't even know what but that's TMS. What did Paul say? TMD, he said. TMD. Trump mindless something. Maybe he meant TMS. Or TDS. I don't know. We'll see if Paul is still on, if he can tell us what it is. Trump mindless disorder. Maybe it's Trump mindless disorder. It's just unbelievable that somebody is intelligent at Chamath. He's obviously super smart. He meant Trump mindless syndrome. Yeah, I'm not attacking it. I'm attacking the people who have it. I will continue to do it, and it's truly astounding. And this is a good example. Here's Chamath, who is a supporter of Trump. He used to be on the left, become a supporter of Trump, is a very successful VC entrepreneur, and is part of this tech bro shift to the right, advocating for the government to own stocks. Nothing would go wrong there as a way to generate revenue. how horrific, fascist, disastrous could that be? I mean, imagine if the government really picks winners and losers by actually investing in their stocks. Cronyism would go down, right? Cronyism would go down. I don't get it. These are smart people. But you see, they've got the philosopher king syndrome. They think they can just shuffle things around like they do in their businesses, and they can make the economy work, and they can solve all the government problems, and they don't really think things through, and they don't have kind of the appropriate skepticism or the appropriate economist's perspective on these kind of things. Very, very sad. Oyvind, if NVIDIA goes down in valuation because AI is cheaper than first expected, shouldn't companies that use AI and AI software rise in value as their investments are now significantly cheaper? Yes. I think the winners in the AI battle in the end will be the users of AI. And some AI companies will win. The challenge is which ones. There are a bunch of them. And there is also going to be new ones coming about. So it's very early on in the life of AI. But yeah, they're definitely going to be winners and losers. And in NVIDIA actually selling chips cheaper is good for the industry, the progress. Now, the other thing about, there's a lot to say about kind of how it all plays out. We'll talk about it in the future. Trump's Middle East envoy Witkoff has monetary connections to support Qataris. Yeah, we already read that and discussed it. Wyatt says, what does crushing Palestinians look like? It means no water, no food, no electricity, no internet access, which is all things that Israel has been providing them, no cell phone coverage, all things Israel has been providing them, until they free all the hostages and they hand over that Hamas basically disarms unilaterally and surrenders. And if people die of starvation, if people die in the streets, it's on them. Now, Israel would be painted as monsters. Yeah, doing the right thing is often going to present you as a monster. Give Palestinians an option. They can get food and water and stuff if they're willing to leave. If they're willing to get on a boat and leave, they can do that. But Israel is no longer supplying them with food, water, electricity, cell phone coverage, and internet access. That's one way. You could carpet bomb them. That's another way. The point is that crushing the Palestinians is bringing them to their knees where they are surrendering, where they are understanding completely, thoroughly, with every fiber of their being, that they have lost and that they will never win and that they cannot win. That's what it means. It's cool. It's something that the West has not done since World War II. But when the West did it in World War II, it actually won, and it actually got to change the very nature of the cultures that it was fighting. Both the Germans and the Japanese absolutely changed. Highly recommend John Lewis's book called No Substitute for Victory. Justin, Trump said last week he wants to clean out Gaza. Yeah, he wants to build resorts there. He wants to build Trump Towers and casinos and stuff like that. Yeah, I mean, that would be nice. I want that too. But what are you going to do with the people? And what are you going to do with their ambitions? Islam Ali says, any advice to someone interested in investing in Argentina? Yeah, I mean, get an Argentinian ETF, an index of Argentinian stocks. I don't think either of us is in a position to pick winners and losers in Argentinian stock market. Get an index fund that invests in Argentinian stock and buy it. I've got a little bit of money. I did that at the middle of last year. Should have done it at the beginning of last year, but in the middle of last year. And it was up over 30% last year. I don't have a lot of money in there. I wish I'd put a lot more. but I put a little bit in because I believe in what Milei is doing, and I think it'll have good outcome. Holden, I think your definition of economics as the study of production and trade is too narrow. I think a better definition is the study of human economizing under scarcity. Thoughts? I really dislike that definition, yours, partially because what does economizing mean? You're kind of putting economics into the definition of economics. Economizing needs its own definition now. And I don't believe in scarcity. The whole point of economics is production, not scarcity. The whole point of economics is avoiding scarcity, getting rid of scarcity. The reality is there is no scarcity. I can produce as much as the market will bear at a given price. Framing economics as in the context of scarcity ignores the fundamental economic activity that makes economics a field, and that is production. Production is, before there's production, there's no economics. There's still scarcity in the sense that you mean it, but there's no economics. Economics as a field is only relevant once you get production and you get money, and of course you already have trade. That's what makes it. Scarcity is irrelevant, and economizing is what does it mean? What does economizing mean? You've created a circular definition. You've got to get rid of economizing and replace it with what that means. But again, scarcity should never be in the definition of economics. I disagree. I know most economists put it in there, and I think they're all wrong. They think that economics studies what happens with the stuff that we have available to us. But no, economics is the study of how we got the stuff and how we can get more stuff. It's exactly the opposite of scarcity. It's studying how to get rid of scarcity. Which is, in the modern world, there's no scarcity. What's a scarce resource in the modern world? There is no scarcity. Everything has a substitute. So no, I think the economics has gone in a completely wrong direction because of the scarcity definition. And I think free market economists like Thomas Sowell, or even like some Austrians, who define economics in terms of scarcity, make a huge mistake, which I think hinders their ability to promote free market economics and to convince people. All right, esoteric dichotomy. Hey, Yaron, the program that works on combating disease in Africa, how would a market address this, given the people in Africa tend to be poorer? Through charity. Right now, taxpayer money is being used for this program in Africa without asking us. Some president, Bush in this case, decided that was how we should use our money, not his. And I'm saying, if you want to help people with AIDS in Africa, start a charity that does exactly what the American government does, but ask for people to voluntarily contribute to it. Don't use force. Justin, Israel won, and it will improve security. It will not be attacked anymore. Trump and Bibi did a wonderful job and deserve credit. No, first of all, Trump was barely there. Bibi sold out, as he always does, and he always will. Israel is not more secure, ultimately. Iran still developing nuclear weapons. Hamas is still in charge of Gaza. Yes, he did a good job in Lebanon, even though even there, the ceasefire deal was a horrible deal. He did a good job in Syria, did a lousy job in Gaza. All this will lead to is bloodshed in the future. Israel might be more secure for the short run, but is not more secure in the long run. In the short run, yes. Short run, absolutely. More secure. And I don't know why you give Trump any credit. That's just a form of Trump mindlessness syndrome. He had nothing but twisting Netanyahu's arm to cut a deal that's a bad deal for Israel. By any measure, except the hostages, it's a bad deal for Israeli security. Justin says, please watch the Brutalist. I intend to, although I hear bad things. Esoteric Dichotomy says, do you think the USD will ever drop zeros? Ever? I don't know about ever. Probably not, but you never know. Ever's a long time. Esoteric Dichotomy, also, why can't we abolish the penny and the nickel? We can. There's no reason we can't. It's just a will. We just need a want to do it. We need the political will to do it. I don't know who the lobbyists are who want to preserve the penny and the nickel. I don't know. Justin, thoughts on Elon saying Germans should not keep living with guilt and look to the future? I mean, there is a truth to that, but not the way he said it and not in the context in which he said it. He said it to a political party that is flirting with fascism, that's flirting with idealization of Nazism, that flirts with Nazi symbolism, and he didn't say it right. Yes, Germans today are not Nazis. You don't need to feel guilty about what Germans in the past did. But you should learn the lessons. You should study your history. You should figure out what led to your parents and grandparents and great-grandparents adopting Nazism and going that route. You should understand the nature of this evil that occurred in your culture so that you never repeat it again. So don't feel guilty you didn't do it. But study it, know it, learn it, so that you never repeat it. That's the message, which he did not convey. And the way he said it is very bad. It's very, very bad. And it's only going to further the speculation about his, ultimately, what he really believes. If he believes anything, if Elon Musk believes anything. Justin said, should AI porn of a person without his or her consent be illegal? Yes, absolutely. You cannot use somebody else's image, body, or face without their consent in any way. Certainly not in a way that demeans them, like in porn. So absolutely should be illegal. And I think it is. All right, guys. Thank you. Thank you to all the super chatters. Really, really appreciate the support. You were very generous today. We didn't quite make the 3-hour goal, but we solidly made the 2-hour goal. We will talk again tomorrow. There will definitely be a show tomorrow. Same time, probably a shorter show because I would have to be at the airport already by now. I might do the show tomorrow an hour earlier. So the show tomorrow might be at 1 p.m. Eastern Time instead of 2 p.m. Eastern Time. Most likely, that will be the case. 1 p.m. Eastern Time instead of 2 p.m. Eastern Time. See you tomorrow. Have a great rest of your week. Bye, everybody, and thank you again.